Hey, so I had a special request to do some content on Luigi Mangione to catch everybody up, so I'm going to do that. This video is about Luigi 101, so you can kind of understand what's been going on so far in the criminal process. And then in another video, I'll talk about some of the interesting things that are already starting to raise their ugly head in this case and things you need to talk about. So let's go forward with Luigi 101. We obviously know that there was an unaliving in New York of the United Healthcare CEO. There was a manhunt. Luigi Mangione was arrested at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania and put in custody in Pennsylvania. So the first thing we saw was that he had a defense attorney that said they were going to fight extradition. Extradition is where New York goes to Pennsylvania and says, we would like to take Luigi from your custody into our custody so that we can prosecute him in New York for this crime. Now, 99% of the time, extradition is nothing more than a formality. It's often waived because the only thing that New York has to prove is that they have probable cause to believe that Luigi committed this crime. They don't have to prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Probable cause is the same low bar that a cop needs to arrest somebody. And obviously, if they arrested him in Pennsylvania, the cops in Pennsylvania thought they had probable cause. So we're talking about a very low bar. His initial lawyer wanted to fight extradition. He was on TV doing a CNN interview within about 12 hours of being hired. I don't love that. But for whatever reason, he said he was going to fight extradition. Subsequently, and I'm not sure if the waiver happened immediately upon him getting another lawyer, but subsequently he got another lawyer and they waived his extradition, which meant that New York could then take him and bring him over into New York into custody to start the process of the prosecution. In my very humble 2 cents, that was the smart thing to do. Waiving extradition just made sense to do that. Anyway, so now here's where it gets pretty interesting with regard to this case. This is not your garden variety unaliving, obviously because of all of the public hubbub about it. So now Luigi is facing 2 parallel criminal cases. There are charges that have been filed by the state of New York, and there are charges that have been filed by the federal government within the court that exists in Manhattan, in that district. So, and I have to read because I didn't memorize this. The state has charged him with first-degree unaliving, terrorism, 2 counts of second-degree unaliving, and a weapons charge. The feds have charged him with unaliving, 2 counts of stalking, and a firearms charge. Now, the feds have the ability to seek the unaliving penalty, the ultimate penalty, because that does exist in federal law. It no longer is a viable option in New York because New York's statute that permitted it was held unconstitutional. And since that time, the New York Assembly hasn't rewritten the statute. So the only unaliving penalty would come through the potential of them seeking it in the federal case. So I know that you all super sharp and you're asking, why is it possible or how is it possible that he could be charged for the same crime both in the state level and the federal level? Isn't that double jeopardy? That is an excellent question, to which I would say as a defense attorney, yes, of course that's double jeopardy. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court back in 2019, the U.S. Supreme Court confirmed that you can, on a state and federal level, be charged with the same crime twice because they are 2 separate independent entities that both have the right to seek justice for a particular crime. I think that's crap, but unfortunately, that is the way the law is right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes a bigger issue as we move through this this process. So you may have seen recently the headlines that Luigi pleads not guilty. So what happened is in his state case, he's had his arraignment. And an arraignment is one of the very first legal procedures that you see in a criminal case. Long ago, people couldn't read and they didn't even know what the charges were against them. So there would be this process where they would be brought into court. The charges against them would be read out loud, and then they would have an initial plea of not guilty or guilty just to start the case out. Well, obviously now people can read. And so a lot of times they just their lawyers will waive the arraignment, say, we don't need to go through that silly process. We plead you not guilty and just give us a copy of the indictment. But so he had that arraignment in court for whatever reason. So of course he pled not guilty. Very normal, nothing shocking. What I understand from where things are right now, his next hearing in the state case is going to be in February. again, from what I understand, and things are going to be changing around, I'm sure, he is currently in federal custody. He is in a federal detention center. That doesn't mean it'll stay that way. The state judge did give him a nominal bond because it doesn't matter, because he doesn't have any kind of bail set in the federal case, so he can't get out regardless of what the state does. So going forward, he's going to have a prosecutor and a judge and a case to deal with in state court, and a prosecutor, a judge to deal with in federal court. Presumably, he's going to have the same defense lawyers in both cases, but I don't know for sure. My understanding is that the feds have said to the state, you can go first on your case. And so we'll see that one kind of work its way forward before the Fed case works its way forward. But of course, again, all of this can change. The next step in the procedure in the state case is going to be the lengthy discovery process, which is pretty much similar in all states. You know, you've got to get your evidence together, analyze it, and make a plan for the defense. And I've talked about that in prior videos. You can go back and look at that. So that's where we are right now in his case. In the next video, I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that you're going to need to consider going forward, because there's some suspicious stuff already starting to happen. So stay tuned.